based on a true story of Liz Murray. Liz Murray was the kind of student who almost never showed up to school. She had already missed 3 full months of classes. But strangely enough, whenever there was a major exam, Liz would appear. One morning, she sat in her classroom with an empty stomach and a tooth throbbing in pain. Still, her hand kept moving across the answer sheet, as if hunger and pain simply did not matter. The teacher grew suspicious and walked over, nearly taking her paper away. In her mind, there was no way this girl could solve questions that difficult. But Liz stayed calm. The test to her was not that hard. When class ended, the teacher pulled Liz aside and told her she needed to take a shower because her body odor was becoming a problem. Liz said nothing. Deep down, she blamed herself. She did not want anyone to think her mother was careless or had failed her. Before Liz left, the teacher handed her a few pieces of used clothing. Then she gave her the test results. Liz had scored perfectly. When asked how she managed to answer everything, Liz explained that she often read encyclopedias she found in the trash. That was where her knowledge came from. With a serious tone, the teacher warned her that if she kept skipping school, social services would be contacted. What no one knew, not her teacher, not her classmates, was that Liz did not have a home. She was homeless, surviving one day at a time. This is Homeless to Harvard, the Liz Murray story. Liz's life had started in a deeply broken and dysfunctional family. Her mother, Jenny, struggled with drug and alcohol addiction and also lived with schizophrenia. Liz and her older sister, Lisa, were often hungry because there was simply no food in the house. Their father, Peter, was physically present but emotionally absent. He did nothing when Jenny fought with the girls. At one point, Jenny demanded $100 she had once given Lisa, money that was supposed to help the family survive. She wanted it back to buy drugs. Peter stood by and did not intervene. Liz and Lisa tried to explain that the money was for living expenses, but Jenny was deep in withdrawal and could not think clearly. Unable to bear her mother's desperate pleas, Liz eventually handed the money over. Even though she resented her mother for it, she still forced Peter to walk Jenny outside so she would not get robbed on the way. For a child, it was a painful reality. Liz grew up without attention, without affection, without stability. There were days she ate from the trash while watching her mother spend money on drugs. One day, social workers and police officers showed up and took Jenny away. They looked around the apartment and saw immediately that it was not a safe place to live. Lisa and Liz had already been warned several times to clean up the house. If the conditions did not improve, they would be removed and placed in a group home. Liz was heartbroken watching her mother leave for rehabilitation. At school, things only got worse. She became the target of constant teasing. She was known as the girl who smelled the worst in class. She did not shower, she wore the same clothes over and over, and her skin broke out in painful rashes. No one saw the real reason behind it. After a few months in rehab, Jenny finally came home. Liz was happy to see her again. Jenny seemed calmer, but her body was covered in bruises. Liz proudly showed her perfect test results. Jenny broke down in tears, then revealed that she had been diagnosed with AIDS. Because of that diagnosis, Jenny said she could no longer use drugs. She decided to move back in with her parents, explaining that she would not be able to stay clean if she remained with Peter. That same day, she left Peter's apartment. Not long after, social services returned. Liz was scolded for not attending school. The officers said they had no choice but to remove her from the apartment. Peter showed almost no emotion. He quietly packed Liz's belongings into a suitcase and did not say a word as she left. Soon after, he went back to the kitchen to prepare drugs. Legally, Peter had little standing. He was not married to Jenny, and Liz was simply his biological daughter. Liz was taken to a group home filled with troubled kids who had been sent there for skipping school. She was assigned chores like cleaning bathrooms and doing other menial tasks. Technically, she could have been released if a parent came to pick her up within 24 hours. The welfare agency only wanted an explanation for her absences. But 24 hours turned into 24 days, and then into 24 months. No one came. She remained there far longer than she ever imagined, trapped in a place that felt cold and unforgiving. Eventually, after serving her time, Liz was allowed to live with her grandfather, where her mother and sister were staying. Things seemed better on the surface. Her sister had grown into a beautiful young woman and was still attending school. Jenny had stopped using drugs, though she still needed medication for her schizophrenia. For the first time in years, Liz saw her mother smile again. She also learned that Peter had become homeless after failing to pay rent. Many of Liz's belongings were thrown away, including her beloved encyclopedias. One afternoon at a cafe, Jenny stepped outside for a moment. Instead of coming back, she went to a bar and started drinking again, leaving Liz alone. That was when Liz realized that not everything had truly changed. Still, a new chapter began. Liz returned to school, not a prestigious one, but at least it offered a sense of normalcy. She was no longer the girl who smelled in class. However, after missing so many years of education, she often sat there unsure of what she was supposed to be doing. At her new school, Liz made a friend named Chris. For the first time in a while, she felt like she had someone who understood her. One day, Liz and a few classmates were studying at her house when things suddenly turned awkward. Jenny came home heavily intoxicated and ended up vomiting on the floor. Liz quietly helped her back to bed. One by one, the other students left. Only Chris stayed behind. That night, Liz opened up. She admitted that she hated living in that house. Years earlier, her mother had told her that her own younger sister had been harassed by their grandfather. Shockingly, Chris had a similar story. Her younger sister had been abused by their father. Chris's mother had once left him and planned to report him, but later went back and chose to live with him again. Liz asked Chris to secretly stay with her, but their grandfather found out and refused. Chris was forced to leave and Liz faced harsh treatment. Eventually, she could not take it anymore and decided to walk away. Her father was gone. Her mother was dying. At just 15 years old, Liz chose to survive on her own. She and Chris started living on the streets together. Some nights they slept outside. Other nights they stayed at friends' houses. When they had no money, they stole food from supermarkets just to get by. Every so often, Liz returned to check on her mother. Jenny was still drinking, and her health was getting worse. Liz held on to the hope that her mother would finally stop, especially as her condition became more serious. One night, Liz went to the bar where her mother usually drank. Instead of finding her there, she was told that Jenny had passed away the morning before. The news crushed her. She never got the chance to say goodbye.
She's dead, hon. She died yesterday morning.
The next day, she went to the burial. Her mother was laid to rest in a charity grave without a proper ceremony, without a pastor, without mourners waiting by the graveside. There was no beautiful coffin, no sense of closure. Liz did not even know if her mother had been properly prepared before burial. Her grandfather quickly took Lisa home, leaving little time for the sisters to comfort each other. After Jenny's death, Chris struggled even more with their homeless life. She suggested they return to a group home, but Liz refused. Her mother was gone, yet she still carried her in her heart. The problem was that Liz did not truly belong anywhere. She was still in 8th grade and somehow she needed to go back to school. Eventually, Liz found temporary shelter with a neighbor named Eva. Thankfully, Eva was willing to help and gave Liz a place to stay. One day, Liz decided to re-enroll in school. She arrived an hour late to meet a man named David, who was in charge of admissions. Even so, she did not give up. She explained that she was serious about coming back. While waiting for him to finish his work, she sat down and began writing a long essay about her life. That essay changed everything. David read it and decided to give her a chance. In her writing, Liz explained why she was so determined to return. She said her mother's death had been a wake-up call. For years, she had hoped her mom would recover so she could finally be taken care of like other children. Instead, she had been the one taking care of her mother until the very end. Now, she realized it was time to take care of herself. David was moved by her honesty and accepted her. However, he needed a parent or guardian to meet with him to make it official. So Liz went to a shelter to find her biological father, Peter. When Peter saw her, he agreed to help. He was asked to lie about having a job and a stable address so Liz could be admitted. This was her only real opportunity. Fortunately, the meeting went smoothly. Before they parted ways, Liz thanked him for showing up. She told him that when she was little, he had been the most fascinating person in her world. He used to come up with creative ideas, and because of him, she learned that there was always a way to survive. Hearing that made Peter emotional. He admitted that he had also been diagnosed with AIDS, just like Jenny. He told Liz not to worry about him. He believed she would succeed in school. After that, father and daughter went their separate ways. Liz began her classes at the new school with a completely different mindset from most students. David quickly realized how sharp she was just from listening to her thoughts and opinions. After one class, Liz received an A- on a test. For many students, that would have been more than enough, but Liz was not satisfied. She went straight to David and asked how she could earn a perfect A. To David, her grade was already excellent, but Liz insisted that he review her writing so she could understand her weaknesses and improve. He often found her still studying in the library late into the evening. To catch up on the years she had missed, Liz took on 10 classes at once. David thought it was too much, but Liz was determined to finish 4 years of education in just 2. She used every spare moment to study. On the train, she read. At work, she squeezed in time to review lessons. To some people, it might have looked exhausting, even punishing. But for Liz, it felt like purpose. For the first time in her life, she had structure. She had a schedule. And she finally had direction. One day at a train station, Liz ran into Chris again. They caught up on each other's lives, sharing where they had been and what they were doing now. That day, Liz invited Chris to visit her school. She wanted her friend to see that going back to class was possible. While they were there, David announced that the school would be sending 10 of its top students on a trip to Boston. Liz assumed she would not make the list, so when she heard that she had ranked number 1, she was stunned. All expenses would be covered. It was a chance to see what college life looked like up close.
You okay, Liz?
I've just always been trash, you know?
You're not trash.
When Chris heard that Liz had been chosen as the top student, she felt even more convinced that school was not meant for her. David quietly expressed disappointment that Chris did not seem to have a dream the way Liz did. Soon, the group arrived in Boston, standing on the campus of Harvard University. Liz could hardly believe she was there. A part of her still felt like she did not belong. For years, she had seen herself as someone who simply survived day to day. Now, she was walking through one of the most prestigious universities in the world. David reminded her that getting into Harvard was an achievement within reach, not an impossible fantasy. As time passed, Liz realized that writing was her strength. She decided to pursue a scholarship by submitting an essay. Seeing her determination, a school staff member told her about the New York Times scholarship. It offered $12,000 per year for 4 years, a life-changing opportunity. To apply, Liz had to write about her most significant academic achievement and explain how she overcame her challenges. She poured her story into the draft. More than anything, she wanted to attend Harvard, grow into the best version of herself, and read the greatest book she could get her hands on. 4 months later, her essay was ready. She deliberately submitted it close to the deadline because she was waiting to turn 18. In her essay, she openly shared her experience of being homeless. Now that she was legally an adult, she would no longer risk being taken by social services for living without supervision. Around that time, she visited her sister Lisa and shared the news that she had advanced to the scholarship interview stage. She borrowed proper clothes to wear for the interview. Lisa was confused about how Liz could be considered for such a scholarship, especially since she barely attended school in the past. She offered to let Liz move in so she would not have to live on her own anymore. But Liz declined. She did not want to return to her grandfather's house. After that conversation, the sisters went their separate ways. Outside, Chris approached Liz and asked for help, saying she had been kicked out of the group home. Liz knew that was unlikely since Chris was still under 18. She refused to run away with her because she had her interview to attend. She urged Chris once again to go back to school, but Chris insisted that people like them would never make it to Harvard. With that, Liz walked away and headed to the New York Times office for her interview. In front of the panel, Liz spoke openly about her life. She never asked why hardship had chosen her. She admitted that she had felt pain, but she had also accepted her reality and worked to rise above it. She loved her mother despite the addiction and mental illness. She believed her mother loved her too. Liz explained that without this scholarship, college would remain out of reach. Against all odds, her emotional and honest interview moved the judges. She was awarded the scholarship. Sometime later, a formal ceremony was held in her honor. Liz Murray was invited to the podium to give a speech. From that moment on, her life would never be the same as it had been before. A reporter asked her how she managed to survive everything she had been through. Liz reflected on the difficult years behind her and said she was actually grateful for them. Those hardships had forced her out of any sense of comfort. They pushed her to look forward because there was no way to go back. Eventually, she reached a point where the only option left was to work as hard as she possibly could and see what that effort would create. And it worked. Liz was accepted into Harvard while also working at the New York Times. For the first time in her life, she had her own apartment. After years of instability, hunger, and uncertainty, she had built something steady with her own hands. So the moral of the story is the kid everyone overlooks might just be one chance away from a completely different life.